Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Katie, a member of the CK-12 team, and my colleague Felix and I will be running this learning management breakout session on CK-12 and Google Classroom. We're so glad you've joined us. While we are hosting this as part of the CK-12 Certified Educator Program, this is not one of the core sessions, meaning there isn't an assignment that goes with it, and it does not count towards your 5 live session requirement. We do, however, have a great session resource page for you in the matching topic in Google Classroom. This includes information on assigning modalities from CK-12 into Google Classroom and seeing student progress within Classroom. We also just posted it in the chat window, or we're about to do so, if you want to access it directly. Given this is meant to be a short webinar to specifically highlight CK-12's integration with Google Classroom, let's jump right into the content. As we go, feel free to post any questions you have for us in the Q&A window. So today's session is called Google Classroom Integration. For those of you using CK-12 and Google Classroom, or using one and interested in incorporating the other, this is a great place to start. Please note that as we talk, if you are going to be using Google Classroom, you do not also need to create a separate CK-12 class. You would just create and keep your classes within Google Classroom. So during this webinar, we'll be covering the topics, CK-12 modalities, so concept-based learning and the modalities. I'll do a quick review of what those modalities are that can be assigned to classes in Google Classroom, as well as how each is reported. And then I'll be passing it off to Felix to do our integration with Google Classroom. So he'll talk about the difference between sharing content to Google Classroom and assigning specific modalities, along with seeing student progress in Classroom. So our concept modalities, if you've been joining us for this program as a whole, you've probably heard a lot about these different modality types. But I want to just tell you the ones that are specifically allowed to be assigned within CK-12 and Google Classroom. So those include our read modalities. That means a standalone read or a section of a textbook. You can share a link to the entire textbook to Google Classroom, so you can actually have students access it that way. But in terms of assigning, you have to assign at the read level itself, because that's where you'd want to make sure students actually open that section and read that piece. You can assign videos. You can assign our Plix interactives. So those are those little quick interactions for math and science. You can assign our simulations, so whether that's physics or chemistry. You can assign our practice. And if you don't know anything about our adaptive practice, definitely go check out our previous sessions on practice, as well as the customized version of practice, which is a quiz, and you can assign that as well in Google Classroom. And finally, another text modality are real-world applications. So let's talk about what all those look like and how they show up. This chart is available both in the Getting Started with Adaptive Practice resource page, as well as this one for Google Classroom. So you don't have to memorize this whole thing. It's quickly accessible there. Our first two modality types, adaptive practice and quizzes, give you a percentage score. So the goal for adaptive practice in CK-12 is to get 10 correct, and you can turn that in at any point in time. In CK-12, that 10 correct would show as a percentage out of 100. So they would have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, or 100% based on how many questions they've gotten correct from there. If they kept doing more past that, it might even go up from there. But that gives them the percentage score. In a learning management system like Google Classroom, for any assignment, you can set the number of points that you want for that particular assignment. So let's say you set the point value for adaptive practice to be 20 points for that homework. So if they got 5 correct, they would have 10 out of 20. If they got more than that correct, if they got all 10 correct, they would get the full 20 points. So whatever their percentage would be on CK-12, it would map to the percent of the score that you chose. For quizzes, their goal is to get all questions in that quiz correct. You can use that quiz as an actual quiz or just a customized practice that you assign for homework. Once again, they can turn in any attempt that they're working off of at any point in time. But if you kind of set limited attempts, then they'd only have that many attempts before that due date. And the same deal, based on the percent correct out of the total number in CK-12, it would be the percent correct out of your score chosen. So 50% in CK-12, if you set a score of 20 points for that assignment in Google Classroom, would show up as 10 correct out of that 20 points. Our other modality types are exploratory and learning modalities. So we don't give percentage scores. There's not questions that they're kind of working for towards a percentage score. Our reads and videos and real world applications, once they open it, that they have the option to turn it in. In CK-12, they get a check mark or no credit. And in a learning management system with a point value attached to that assignment, they would get no credit or full credit once they've turned it in. Similarly, our interactives and our simulations, those are that check mark, no credit, or full or zero credit within a learning management system. But those we actually force the students to interact with a bit. They have to start watching the introductory question or playing in a sandbox, or they have to start answering challenge questions in Plix. So you can do that piece for the whole bottom set. Basically, once they've turned it in, they have that credit. So they wouldn't need to do that until after, again, at any point in time. The adaptive practice and quizzes, they can turn in at any point in time up to that due date and go from there. So I think with that, we are going to pass this along to Felix so he can show you specifically how CK-12 interacts with Google Classroom, and we can go from there.
Thanks, Katie. And let me share my screen with you all. Okay. So hello, everybody. My name is Felix. I work here at CK-12. So right now what you guys are seeing is a teacher's sort of homepage. I'm signed in as a teacher right now. And I'll kind of go through maybe this first part on showing you how to find and assign resources, and then kind of what you can do with that inside Google Classroom. So first thing, I'll go ahead and let's go to, so now I'm just kind of looking around to find something that I would want to assign. And as Katie pointed out, there's a bunch of different types of resources that you can assign, and I'll show you what to look for when you get to these resources. So the first one I'm going to go ahead and pull up is this force read. So the one thing to notice is over here on the left, it says assign to class. So anytime you see this assign to class, that's kind of an indicator letting you know that you can actually assign this. And so what you want to do is go ahead and click on that. And this is going to bring up this little dialog here. I'm going to go ahead and click on Google Classroom. And so it's going to ask me to connect to Google Classroom. And in this case, this is actually my very first time connecting. So first, it's going to ask you to pick an account if you're signed into multiple. And then now it's going to load. Okay, so now it's going to load my classes here. And these are my Google Classroom classes. And so what you can select the courses you want, the classes you want. You can assign a due date. This is all optional, so it's not required. And then you can adjust the title, so you can change it to something else. And then over here, you can type in instructions. These will show up kind of below the title. And then once you're ready to assign, you click on assign. And so this will send the assignments to your classroom. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm that. And then I'm going to keep going. I'll show you a couple other spots. Okay, yeah. So let me go ahead and show you something that's in the library. I know this is pretty popular question. So a lot of people ask, can you assign your Flexbook, maybe that you've customized or bookmarked, and also any quizzes that you've created? So I'll start with the Flexbook. This Flexbook I haven't customized, but I did bookmark it, so it's always accessible to me. So notice there's no assign a class on the left side. And there was a question, I think, that was asking about, oh yes, so basically how to share something to Google Classroom. So since there's no assign action here, down here, there's this share me sort of airplane icon. I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And so this gives you like a few different options, but the one to point out is Google Classroom. So I clicked on that. And now this is going to bring up Google's own sort of share to Google widget. And you might have seen this on a bunch of other sites. Oops. Okay, actually. Okay, so I'm actually, okay, this is, so this is kind of a good thing. I'm signed in as a couple different, onto a couple different accounts. So right now it's picking my CK-12 account. So if you're actually signed into different accounts, you can switch. So now I'm gonna go ahead and select a class. We'll do class 1. And then right here where it has this sort of choose an action, you notice it does say create an assignment. And if you create an assignment through this workflow, when you're kind of going through Google's shared classroom, this doesn't give you the grade passback from CK-12. So if you do want to do the grade passback, what you would need to do is always use the assign to class. But in this case, since this is a Flexbook and we don't have an assign action for the entire Flexbook, you can use this, you can make an announcement. If you wanted to, you can create an assignment, but just know that it doesn't do the grade passback. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make an announcement. And then I'm just gonna share. And I'm just gonna post that to the class. And so that's been posted. So to that question on how could I share my Flexbook with the class, I would say sharing using this icon here. So again, that's this little airplane icon. And you'll see this on a bunch of different pages. So if there's a particular page that you do want to share, you can always do that same share action. So that's kind of sharing and assigning the difference. So I'm going to go ahead and now go into one of these sections. So again, notice there's no, you can't assign the whole chapter. There's no assign the class action here. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick a section. So, okay, now we do have an assign the class here. So if you wanted to assign this section of your own Flexbook, you could. Brings up the same dialogue. Another thing I'm going to point out is this little practice badge here. If you click on this dropdown, there's also an assign the practice here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and just to show you, it brings up the same dialogue. But now this time you're assigning the practice associated with this. So say you wanted to first maybe preview this. So let's actually go ahead and do that. So I'm going to just go ahead and stop. Not fully go through that. But what I also wanted to point out was, so once you're here, say you're just previewing it and you're like, okay, now I do actually want to assign this. So again, there's another assign the class sort of action here. You can click on that, and that'll also give you the same option to assign. So there's a few different places you can do that. And so I will close this. So that's assigning a Flexbook section. The other piece was the quiz. So I'm going to go back to my library now. And so now we have this quiz, which a lot of you may be creating your own. So here we have the assign the class action. So you can assign this, select Google Classroom, and it'll appear there. So I'll actually stop right here and go into Google Classroom now and kind of show you some actions within Google Classroom itself. So this is the classroom that I've been posting the assignments to. So this is where we shared that entire Flexbook. Down here was the read assignment that we had created. So if you notice, it says there's 0 done, or 0 done, 3 not done. If you click on this, it's going to bring up all the students who are in this class, or that this is assigned to actually, and it says that they're not done. Up here, there's a point. So by default, when you create an assignment on CK-12, we assign 100%. If you want to change that, you just come in here, update it to something else. So let's say this is only maybe worth 10 points. You can update that. And then now this assignment has been set to a 10-point value. and I'm going to go back out one. Another thing that you can do sort of on Google Classroom, which you can't do directly in CK-12. So this is an assignment that we created. I'm going to click here to edit. So I'm going to go to edit. So by default, we assign to all students, but on Google Classroom, you have the option to choose which students you actually want to assign to. So this is kind of a really cool feature. I know a lot of people have asked about assigning to individual students, and on CK-12, currently you can't do that, but if you're using Google Classroom, you can. So all I did was I went to edit, and then down in this drop down, you can select which students you want that assignment to be available for. And then again, you can modify due dates. If you need to add like a topic, you can. If you want to attach any additional resources, you can. You can also add links to other resources. So I'm just going to go ahead and cancel. So that's another thing that you can do. And then I'll pause with this teacher workflow for right now. And I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the student side. So I'm logged in as a student here. I'm going to go ahead and click into this class. So this is the same classroom. All the assignments that the assignment we just created, the resource that we just shared. If you're curious, if I click on this, it just takes you to that book. And so here's a Flexbox section that I had assigned previously. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this. So I am the student here. So basically, this is just telling me as a student that I've completed this, I got full credit, and that this is marked done, so this is complete. This is marked done automatically once they open the assignment. So let me demonstrate that with this force assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. Okay, let me log out. 1 second. I had too many accounts. Okay. So I'm opening this assignment here. So this was a Flexbox section. Oh, sorry, no, this wasn't that. So even the Flexbox section assignments, anything that's like a read or a video shows up in this kind of view here. So this is what we call our embed view, which basically strips out everything and just leaves the content. So they won't see like none of the side navigation or the additional links. It's just the content there for them to focus on. And it has everything that's embedded, so the videos are all still included. So notice now that I'm back here, this says done. And if I click on this, now you see this says 10 out of 10. And so for read and video assignments and pretty much anything that's not like an interactive or adaptive practice or quiz, they'll get full credit once they open the assignment. For Sims and Plix, they have to do a bit more interactions to get to a turn-in state, and I can show you that in a second. So let me show you now. So this is a practice that I had previously assigned. I'll go ahead and actually, so for this practice, I'm going to go over to the teacher view to kind of show you what that looks like for the students that submit. Here we are. So this is that same practice now as the teacher. So you can see there's a couple of different things here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. So this was that same, so the student had got 10%, he only did one. But what I wanted to show you was that this is the report. So a lot of people ask, like, are you able to see what kind of statistics you get for your student? So for practice, adaptive practice, and for quizzes, you get a good amount of stuff. We don't have anything like this yet for like a read video, Sims or Plix. But for adaptive practice and quizzes, this is what you're getting as a teacher. So this is attached to the student submission. And if I scroll down, you can see, it has a layout of a breakdown of the questions. So it has, what I got right, what I got wrong. And so that's available for you as a teacher. And that ends up being submitted as an attachment here. So you can see the score also shows up there. So that's that report page that a lot of people are asking about. So it is available for our practice and quizzes, but not for like reads or anything that's just basically a full credit. And then, so I'm going to switch back to this student just to show you guys for, let's see. Okay, actually, let me show you a, sorry. So now I'm back as the teacher. I'm going to close this. I wanted to show you guys one of our interactive, so I'll pick a Plix. So I'm on the teacher homepage, just going to the sort of Plix, call our Plix browse. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick something. So let's see, let's do this. So you can assign these Plix and simulations as well. So for simulations, they'll have something similar, but notice it's the assign to class. I'm going to go ahead and edit this and say this is a Plix. And up there, and then I'm just going to go ahead and assign this so we can see what that looks like for our students. Great, and I can actually click OK. So quickly, let me jump back to the students page. So now here's the Plix here. Let me go ahead and open that. And when the students are, I guess that's one other thing I should point out. So a lot of times people ask about like rostering and do I need to use a CK-12 group or do I use a Google Classroom group? If you're using Google Classroom, just stick with Google Classroom. You don't need to go and create separate classes. We kind of take care of all that in the back end. Although you won't see any of your Google classes on CK-12. So if you go looking for them, you won't find them, but you also don't need to do any creation, any setup on CK-12 itself. You can kind of stay within Classroom, continue to manage your courses there, and then we'll take care of sending the grades to your grade books. So this is still the student. This is a Plix, and now it's saying, this is currently assigned to you. Try some questions to turn it in. So I'm going to go ahead and so as they're starting the challenge questions, once they start attempting the challenge questions, we go ahead and give them credit. So now if I go here, you see that it says done, and then if I click over here, it's the full credit. And it's a similar thing for simulations as well. And then if you're curious I can show you the teachers. So this is that same Plix. We got one student who's attempted, gets the full credit. Notice there's nothing attached because that was just for our adaptive practice and quiz. And then I think I can pause here and start going through some of these questions you guys have.
So we had a question in terms, or a bunch of kind of conversations about ways to put the Flexbook in the About section on your Google Classroom, and a post on your Google Classroom as an announcement to tag it. So if you can copy the URL, you can post it in the About section. So that might be one way. Maybe you could just show that, or if you have any other ideas, that would be great.
Yes. So, okay, we can do that. Let me just go. Okay, so we want to post something in our About section, text to reference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this Earth Science Concepts Flexbook for high school, and I'm just going to copy this URL. I'm going to go over here where it says Add Class Materials. So you have a few different options. Let's go CK-12 Science. And I'm going to add a link. So that link that I just copied from the browser, I'm just going to go ahead and post that there. And then I'm going to post. So now that's there. And if I go back to the stream, it's there. And then for the students, let me pull up my student. And so this is also here. I think you can also, let's see, for teachers, I think you can pin something. Let me see if that's true. Okay, you can move it to the top. I thought they had a way you can pin something. But so yeah, that's an easy way to add something to your about your course section. Just copy the URL. That can be any URL on our site. And then go ahead and post that, add class materials, and just upload a link.
So Felix, we had two different people ask about highlighting and annotating if they're accessing the read in classroom. My understanding was that those features were within CK-12, but if you know something different, please let us know.
That's correct. So the annotations will only show up on CK-12. So like if they're opening, do I have one open? The read assignment like this, notice there's no highlighting options here. It is something that we are working to support, but currently it's not on this view. If they were to go directly onto CK-12, they will have those options, but just not for this assignment sort of view.
And then we had a question about accessing Sims in our Sims app or our Flexbook app. Our apps are separate from Google Classroom. So if you're assigning content within Google Classroom, you would need to access and use that content in Classroom. That would be separate kind of in our offline reader or our Sims app. They're not, they're kind of separate worlds that you're working with. I know we are getting a couple more questions. I'm just going to wrap up a couple final pieces and then we'll continue to work our way through any questions as you guys post them. So let me steal this back for a second and 2 seconds. Get this up and running. Share. There we go. So I just want to wrap up with a couple of pieces. There's been a lot of questions on kind of our apps or Classroom clearly since this topic or other learning management systems. If you use the tools and apps link at the bottom of our webpage or directly, this direct link, ck12.org/tools and apps, you can find out more information about our apps, our Flexbook and Sims offline apps, and our practice app, which has to be online for that adaptive component. As well as information about all of these learning management systems. So definitely go check out that page to learn more. We have done a bunch of different assignment sessions. We wrapped up our last 2 getting started and customizing sessions yesterday and this morning. So if you missed those sessions but want to learn more, I would recommend you join us this coming school year or you watch those recordings, especially if you have questions about how practice works and the difference between different parts and all those pieces. Those are great resources. And if you're one of those schools that uses Google Classroom and Canvas and Schoology, like I seem to keep running into this year when I was traveling, you're welcome to join us later this week for that CK-12 and Canvas/Schoology webinar that will do the same thing. It'll be super quick, kind of walk through pieces for that. We have 2 other offerings that we are announcing that this week, this Friday, we are having live chats. So you know, you guys have been talking on our chat window, you've been talking in Q&A and sharing some great resources. So if you want to join for any or more than one of these, please sign up for those in the CEP Google class. When I finish wrapping this, we can pull some of those links and post them in here as well, so you can have access to them. But definitely check out the links in the class. And then tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time, Neera Khosla, she's our executive director and co-founder, she's going to be doing an Ask Me Anything. This is a great place to ask some of those high-level questions. We're here to answer all your tech questions and pieces, but, you know, what subjects are you going to work on? Where is this going? What does this look like? How did you get here? All those questions are great for her. So feel free to join us for that, and we'll post those links as well. And then the session resource page, that chart is on the back of this resource page in Classroom. So please feel free to access that and use that as a great resource. And please let us know how we're doing. The feedback form is the same for all of our sessions, so you can just keep accessing it within Classroom. Lindsay's been posting kind of all of these great links in here, so hopefully you'll see those as you work your way through if you need to copy one. But everything is available in our class environment. So I think with that, I'm going to say thank you. We're going to bump back to Q&A and see what final questions we can answer. If you have no more questions, you are welcome to head out from here, and we'll go from there.
Great, thanks, Katie. Thanks everyone who's had joined. So I'll go ahead and look at some of these questions. So Mary was asking, what do the reports look like in Google Classroom from practice? So Mary, you are in luck. So here's a joints practice that I had assigned. So this is kind of Google's own view here. But if I click on any of these attached reports, and let me actually share that so you can see, be very helpful. Okay, let me go back a couple steps. Okay, so what I was showing was, so this is a practice that I had assigned. We have a student who's done. So this is, you know, Google's kind of their own view of their gradebook. And over here we have a couple reports. So if I click on this, so this is the report that we attach when they submit their attempt. So this is what you would get. So you can see like how many they got correct, you know, if they hit a streak, how much time they spent. And then down here is where you can actually see the questions that were asked, the difficulty, and then you can see what the right answer was, what was wrong. So that's what the reports look like, and it looks very similar, or if not the same, for quiz. I think I have a quiz I could show you. Oh, no, I don't. Okay, so I don't have any quizzes, but the report for quiz, it looks the same. It's the same format. Okay, so okay, so 1 second.
So the next question we have is the Plix or practices in line with the reading or at the bottom of the lesson? I've seen it inline, but when editing, I can't do that. So right now, the only option for users is to put a URL link to a Plix within text if you're customizing text. For practices, you can actually embed that practice. So maybe Felix can navigate to a practice on CK-12, and we can show you where that embed code is. But please note that anything you include as a link or embedded within text is not automatically assigned to users as you're working your way through. It's only kind of the read that would be assigned, or you would need to assign separately those modality pieces. But if you wanted to pull the embed code for practice, you could do that by going directly. He's navigating to a concept. And then once in that concept, clicking on the practice option. And on the left side under those ellipses, you can click on embed, and you would get an embed code just like you would for a YouTube video. And that embed code you can paste within text. So you're welcome to put quizzes and practice directly within your text, but you're not assigning that if you assign the read as a whole. You would need to separately assign that practice to see a report for that. So just keep that in mind as you go. And then we have a question about jumping to CK-12 so they can highlight readings. If you're putting a link within Google Classroom and you click on that link, and it's not part of an assignment, it's just simply here's a link to this piece. So if you click on that link and you open it up, it takes you directly to CK-12, and that's outside the classroom environment, and they could kind of access and highlight readings that way. So that might be a great way to kind of share it, but if you are doing it as a specific assignment and it's staying within the window of Classroom, then you would lose kind of that extra tool functionality within CK-12. So I think with that, we don't have any open questions at this time. And it looks like someone was just able to join us, we are going to post this recording in the CEP Google Class, so you're more than welcome to watch it and review any of it. Feel free to join us for future offerings this week and then throughout the school year. And we will wrap things up from there. Thanks so much.